Hello. So today I'm going to talk about whether it's important to read research papers if you're a finance professional. So do you read research paper in finance or economics if you're a professional working in the field of finance? Well, not in all areas of finance, but in some areas, I think it's good to read the important papers, or at least the summary, right? If you are a researcher, right? If you're a quant researcher, you're working in a research firm, in an asset management firm, it's good to read the latest research papers, right? In fact, as a quant researcher, you're required to read research paper on a regular basis, right? But if you work as a quant professional in the sales side, right, you may not read latest research paper, but you probably have to read some of the classic papers published, long back, but you still have to read some of the things from there, right? A lot of the things from the old papers are already available in books, so you may not have to read the papers in detail, but in some cases you may have to read. In some areas of finance where you're doing some sort of research type work, for example, you're doing economic research, you are working as a macroeconomist, or you're doing a sector level research, right? There are sector specialists doing research in various areas of finance. There, these people also read a lot, and they do read research papers from academicians, and they do research paper, not just the recent research papers, but also the old research papers. So it's not a mandatory thing, but it's good to read, and in some fields it's absolutely necessary to read. If you're working in risk management, you must read research papers uh, on regulatory changes and so on. It may not be academic research paper, but working papers from central banks, consulting firms. Well, the working papers from consulting firm are not necessarily great. They're more like sales speech. But from central banks like ECB or the Federal Reserve or the Bank of England or other central banks around the world, they publish working papers on different topics. They're really good papers to read, right? There are many amazing papers on various areas of finance, whether it's on you know managing assets to regulating lending activities to ESG, climate risk, to treasury, to liquidity, interest rate risk, but also amazing research papers on valuations and challenges and so on. So there help depending on where you are working, I think it's good to read some of the more recent research paper on these topics. You won't find much on ESG and climate risk, for example, right? Because these are new topics. But there are some people who have done research on climate risk and ESG risk and how they are, related to other areas of risk, and how they are also related to valuations of assets, or expected returns in the future and so on and so forth, or how they are related to expected default rates in a given portfolio, or there can be many questions asked related to this particular item, and there are some good research papers out there. So if you really want to know this topic and what's going on, and it's good to keep yourself updated with the more recent research papers or working papers from different organizations, right? And when I'm saying research papers, need not be just from academic institutions. Many academicians are doing very applied research papers, right? That's good. But research papers can also come from industry professionals, or people working in central banks. Many large banks also publish working papers, publicly available working papers. Obviously you have working papers for internal use, but you can't you can read working paper for internal use from other banks, but there are some publicly available resources as well, right? So the answer is that it's not always necessary, but it's good to read research papers. But depending on where you work, actually, if you work in more customer facing roles, revenue generating roles, then why read research paper, right? Some people downplay academic research a lot. Even I don't like academic research a lot. I'm not a big fan of it, but I do believe that some selective academic research work is quite good. I mean, I've come across working papers from academicians which are quite good. But there's quite a few I have come across which are very abstract and not very relevant for working professionals or industry professionals. They may be really good for academic researchers, but as working professionals, we may not uh, learn much from those papers. So be careful while choosing which paper to read and which paper not to read. Right? If you are not able to read the entire paper, good to read the conclusion, the summary. Uh, okay, and in some areas where you have to cite research papers, then make sure that you read the research paper before citing it, because if you're working as a researcher in some of the areas, you may have to cite some of the research papers in your academic literature review. There also you have to read the papers well before doing your own research work. Okay, so the answer here is, it depends where you work, right? For most finance professional, I don't think you should be reading academic research paper, as long as you are following the news and that So we are living in times where everything is coming in short views, right? Short reels or short LinkedIn posts, right? Is that good enough? I'm not too sure. But if you want to really go beyond that, then it's good to read, the details, the underlying research paper, and not just read, the 4 or 5 bullet points, right? But entirely up to you.